Hi Live. This one is about what can we learn from plagues of locusts. And this is one of the science lives. If this is your whoa, if this is your first time joining, thanks so much for coming. This is the live interactive online school, so you can ask questions whenever you want, and you can guide this in whatever direction you want this to go in. Just throw questions into the chat and say hi. 1 million slots is here, Rebecca Carmen is here, Kieran is here, Miz is here. Hi everyone. Right, also, my internet's fixed, so I'm sorry that it was a bit rubbish yesterday, whoever was here then. And yeah, let me switch across to this. What can we learn from plagues of locusts? So first, I wanted to play a game with you all, which is just a quick spot the difference game. What's the difference between these two little things? One of them's a grasshopper, the other one is a locust. So who do you think is the best dressed? Who do you think you'd most like to hang out with? What's the difference between these two little critters? LDBR is here, Get Out of the Freezer is here, Amy Sum is here as well. Rebecca's saying skinnier legs for the locust. Does the locust have skinnier? It does have skinnier legs. I've never noticed that before, but actually that makes a lot of sense. That is a great point. Okay, so the locust has got skinny legs. And the Miz saying the grasshopper has more of a summer fashion choice, whereas the locust seems more winter fashion. Yeah, that's right. So the grasshopper is more geared up to no. But this it is really important that this one's green. Why is it important that a grasshopper is green? Grasshoppers don't do no swarming. Yeah, that's good of them, isn't it? So Amy Sim is saying, is it life cycle related? Can locusts be dormant? I actually don't know the answer to that, but I'm not so sure if it's as different as you might think. And 1 million sloths is saying that the grasshoppers are green because it is like grass, and that is exactly why they are green, because it is really similar to grass, which helps them stay camouflaged, blend into leaves, says Posy Joe. Cool. Get Out of the Freezer is saying, I think they're both wearing top hats, which is of course a long-running similarity between the two. So yeah, I'll add those quickly. There we go. So they both have the same fashion sense and the same recognition that a top hat is important. And Kieran is saying, are they going to fight to the death or are they friends? Well, you're about to see. And Get Out of the Freezer is saying they're both very sophisticated insects. Can anyone think of any other differences between a grasshopper and a locust, or any similarities? And let me know what you think. Yeah, if this is just to welcome anyone who's come late, this is an Aim High Live, and so this is the live interactive school. You can ask questions whenever you want, and just jump into the chat. And today we are learning about what can we learn from plagues of locusts. And this one is going to go into all kinds of things. In fact, I'm about to ask you which direction you want to go into next. But first, I want to know, what's the difference between a grasshopper and a locust that both wear top hats? What's the difference between them? So Posy Joe is saying speckled legs on one, which is true. So the locust has different kinds of patterns on its legs, and this is to do with the kind of camouflage that it needs. So yeah, a locust has camouflage because of using stripes instead. The grasshopper has a bumpier bum. Yeah. Locust tail is slightly more upwards. Kieran is saying, does the locust fly? And locusts do fly, yeah. So locusts will fly. LDBR and Get Out of the Freezer are both agreeing about the sophistication of the insects. Oh, thanks, Kieran. That's really nice of you to say. Grasshopper is the 2000s version. Right. Okay. So yeah, those are the key differences between the grasshopper and, or those are some of the key differences between the grasshopper and the locust. But did you guys know that grasshoppers and locusts are actually the same animal. They are the same animal, and I was really surprised when I found this. But yeah, grasshoppers and locusts are the same animal. Okay, now there are several ways that we can go next before we carry on. I think we'll end up. So yeah, where do you guys want to go? Where do you guys want to go next? Do you want to go next into how evolution works? Do you want to go into a bit more of the kind of workings behind evolution, or do you want to talk more about locusts? Do you want to find out more about the swarm of locusts first? Which one do you want to do first? Tell me where you want to go. We can go in multiple different directions. Miz is voting locusts. Kieran is voting locusts. Rebecca, locusts. Get out of the freezer saying evolution. Okay, right. We're going to come back to evolution, but I'm going to go first to locusts. So here we go. This is a proper plague of locusts. This is a swarm of locusts in Egypt. Right. So the locusts. Let's first talk about where locusts come from. So what happens is you've got this large area of grass, and the grass has got quite a lot of grasshoppers on it. The grasshoppers are all sat on their grass hanging out, and because it's been a bit of a bad season and there maybe isn't that much grass to go around, this grass has a lot more grasshoppers on it than normal grass. It's got a lot more grasshoppers on it than normally. So ultimately the grasshoppers end up depleting some of the grass. So the grass runs out in some spots. And so actually you end up with quite a few bits of grass that run out. And so instead of a large field full of grass, you end up with just like little patches. And that's all that remains. So you've got a few little patches of grass left over, and the grasshoppers then all concentrate into these little patches. And because they're all crowded into these little patches, they then eat all of the grass really quickly, and before you know it, there's hardly any grass at all. Before you know it, there's just one patch left, and that one tiny patch has got all the grasshoppers for miles around, all on it, all trying to gather food. Now, what do you think happens to the grasshoppers when they come into this close contact because they've been forced there because of the lack of food? Get out of the freezer saying, why is the guy so calm, the one in the picture? Yeah, I don't know, they're so calm, aren't they? So Get out of the freezer is saying they meld together into one giant grasshopper. And Rebecca Carmen is saying, do they fly away? So yeah, what happens is, if you're joining late, I'm just explaining what happens to grasshoppers as they end up squidged into one small patch of grass because their food is running out. What happens to the grasshoppers is they literally metamorphose into locusts. So grasshoppers on the grass turn into locusts. So the grasshoppers literally transform into locusts because of the fact that they're shoved in this close proximity to one another. So, and it's a very strange metamorphosis. It not only changes their shape, they become able to fly, but they also become a lot more friendly with one another. So these newly evolved, these newly metamorphosed locusts are much more likely to kind of work together and cooperate. And then they all take off, and this may happen on a huge scale, and they all gather together, and together they go around hunting for food in a huge pack. And they sweep across, generally they're like the plains of Africa. They sweep across Africa just like eating everything in their sight. And this is something that has frequently destroyed parts of the ancient world and is still going on now. I think there's a locust swarm the size of London sweeping around Africa at the moment, or it was pretty recently. So this is still a huge problem now, where the grasshoppers will suddenly turn into locusts and rampage. Right, okay. Here's the really, really interesting bit. So there was this crazy experiment that was done where they took a swarm of locusts and they put it inside a room. And inside this room that was full of locusts, they called it the Locust Room. Inside the Locust Room, they had this huge swarm of locusts, and then they sprayed in a load of gas that made the locusts go to sleep. So they sprayed in a load of like sleeping gas, essentially. So in goes the gas and circulates around, and all of the locusts in the room fall to the bottom and go to sleep. And then these experimenters go into the room and they meticulously count every single locust. All of them. They count them all. And then they let them all come around again, and they all swarm in the room. And there's no way in or out of this room, apart from via the sleep gas tube, which none of them go in and out via. So there's no way in and out of the tube for the locust, in and out of the room for the locusts. They're all stuck in there. And then they swarm again, and then they gas them again, and then they count them again. And they repeat this several times. And what do you think happens each time they count the locusts? What do you guys think happens? So there's a room full of locusts. They're all swarming around. And then every now and then they'll send them all to sleep and count them. What do you think happens to the number of locusts each time they count them? So Ganna the Freezer is saying there are more. Rebecca Carmen thinks there might be more. I wonder if anyone else has got any. So Kieran's thinking more. And Amy is saying, or is it a cannibalistic swarm? And Mears is saying less. So Mears and Amy are the ones who are right. The numbers go down. So the numbers of these locusts continually fall inside this room. And the amazing thing is that there is no trace of any of the locusts left behind anywhere, which means that the swarm are eating one another. Now, it's not that they just randomly eat one another. It's quite different to that. It's that when one of the locusts in a swarm makes a mistake, it will bash into another locust and damage itself. Because the swarm is quite difficult to fly around in to make sure that it's navigating around all the other locusts. But when it's inside the swarm, it may well make a mistake. And if it does, then it gets damaged. And then because the others nearby recognize that it's damaged, they start taking bites out of it. And before it can even hit the floor dead, they've all taken so many bites out of it that it's completely gone. The locust swarm perpetuates itself by eating the locusts that make mistakes. Why could this be a good thing? Why might it be, I say good, it depends how you interpret good, but why would this be a thing that would work for the locusts as a life system? Why is it good that they eat one another? They eat one another. Okay, so Miz is saying get rid of the duds. Kieran is saying population control. And Kieran is saying that's harsh punishment for making a mistake. Yeah, for sure. This is completely unforgiving. They eat one another and the swarm depletes. And the reason why this is good is that one, it continues to supply the swarm with food if there is no food. And two, it essentially speeds up evolution because the weaker ones repeatedly die and are unable to breed. Right, okay, so let's just quickly talk about how evolution works. Some of you will know this, but just a quick recap. So here are two dinosaurs. So these dinosaurs ultimately decide to get married, and let's put a veil over this T-Rex. Or maybe it should be white, a white veil. And a wedding dress. Ultimately these two dinosaurs decide to get married and have kids, and they have a load of kids, and they have loads and loads of baby dinosaurs, and all of these baby dinosaurs are different. Neither of them are identical to either of their parents. They give birth to loads of random different kids, and so what happens to these different kids that are all slightly different to one another? Again, the freezer is saying we can solve world hunger and population in one go. I don't think the world population is going to be happy with a locust-style strategy for sorting out the problem. And Get Out the Freezer is saying, is that what we can learn from them? Kind of. That's where, I'm about to head there. So what do you guys? What happens in the evolution of these? How are these dinosaurs able to evolve? They have these kids. They've had 5 kids. The kids are all really different to one another. What now happens to these kids during their lifetimes? Alec is adding that locusts also eat each other when they are deficient in protein, so keeping up the supply of food in the locust swarm. And males avoid each other when they are ready to mate. I don't know why that is, actually. Alec, why is that the males avoid one another when they're ready to mate? Is it because they know that they'll be aggressive with one another otherwise? So Kieran is saying the kids who have higher fitness have kids and pass on their genes. So survival of the fittest, strongest survives. Brilliant. Right, these are the terms I was hoping would come out. So survival of the fittest. So loads of these baby dinosaurs are going to die because they're not strong enough to survive. So maybe only one of their kids survives because it's the strongest. And when I say strongest, I mean the most suited to the environment that it's living in. And so that one is then able to have kids. And all these kids are slightly different again. But then, once again, most of them die. And only a couple of them survive to have kids, and these ones that survive then pass on their characteristics. And so generally you tend to pass on the best characteristics and so on and so on. Right, okay, now the reason why this is such an important topic is, let's just go to this guy, Mr. Darwin. So Darwin came up with this idea called survival of the fittest. Now, there's something wrong with that sentence, or not something wrong, but there's something that a lot of people misinterpret, and this is what I want to focus on. Survival of the fittest. So, and it's to do with this word, the last word. This is the thing that people always misinterpret, and it always results in people coming to terrible conclusions. So, what does that last word mean, or what are the different ways that the last word can be interpreted? What do you guys think? Amy's saying, can Darwin get a veil? Darwin's not getting married to one of the dinosaurs. But when he is getting married to a dinosaur, I'll give him a veil. Okay, Miz is saying fittest seems more physical, and as in like the strongest, whereas maybe it should be to do with mental wellness as well, or mental strength. And Kieran is saying fitness in these terms means better suited to the environment. Exactly. So... And Get Out of the Freezer is saying, didn't people use Darwin's theories to justify eugenics? So eugenics is this idea that certain groups of people have had in the past, like, for example, the Nazi Party in Germany, where they said certain kinds of people are better, they have better genes, and therefore we should get rid of the others to speed up evolution. And that idea is called eugenics, and it's completely ridiculous because everyone who understands even like a tiny bit of evolution knows that the best thing in evolution is to have huge variety, and the idea that there is an easily defined best which we could easily understand is just very silly. It's all about what the environment defines as best. Green Mango Man is saying intelligence matters too, not just physical strength, which is great. That's echoing what Miz said. And Alec is saying, well, they have to be able to survive because some... Alec is talking about how younger locusts eat older members of the family to be fitter and stronger. That is news to me. I didn't know that. But I'm going to look into that later because I really wanted to read more about locusts, but I ended up doing loads on Darwin. Okay, right. So let's carry on. Let's carry on with doing stuff with Darwin on survival of the fittest. Because I'm seeing Kieran has asked a great question about the US starting CRISPR trials on humans, but let's talk about that another time because that is a whole other lesson and a great topic. Okay, so the thing that people always get wrong with survival of the fittest is they think that fittest means the fittest singular rather than what it actually means, which is the fittest plural. I mean, it can be singular in certain cases, but when you zoom that far in, it generally doesn't work as well as an idea. Survival of the fittest is about survival of the fittest group. So when you just think about survival of the fittest singular and you look back in time, it becomes really confusing as to like why Why did Neanderthals get wiped out when Neanderthals seemed like they may have been perhaps a more intelligent, stronger being than us? And yet we wiped them out because we were the fittest, plural. And this is something that's often overlooked, and people use it to justify being incredibly selfish. Like, people in the world are incredibly selfish, and they justify it on the basis that life tells us that the fittest survives and everyone else gets left behind. But actually, the fittest survive a lot better when they work together. So I want to just quickly show you this. Does anyone know what we're seeing here? This is something that you could see in the coast off Namibia. So Namibia is a country in Africa, and if you go and look, I think they also glow, but you can see them in the sea off the coast of Namibia. Get out of the freezer saying, woo, teamwork. Does anyone have it? No one seems to be throwing in any ideas of what this could be. Okay, Amy's saying, is it glowing phytoplankton? Get out of the freezer is saying, is it snakes? And Green Mango Man is saying, is it bioluminescence? Right, these are the biggest bacteria in the world. They've got a ridiculous name, which I wrote down. It's Thiomargarita namibiensis or something like that. Anyway, these bacteria are so big that you can see them with the naked eye. As in, you know how you need a microscope to see most bacteria? You can see these with your eyes without the aid of anything else. Anyway, I just wanted to show you some cool bacteria. But along the lines of survival of the fittest, plural, it's now well understood that bacteria, if they're hanging out together, and if the bacteria are under attack from another kind of bacteria, so coming in over here, then the stronger bacteria on the blue side will support the weaker bacteria by secreting a chemical, and it's a chemical called indole. So this big bacteria will secrete loads of indole to help the other bacteria to fight off the orange bacteria, because even down to the level of bacteria, there's an appreciation in nature that the fittest plural survive and not the fittest singular. So next time you find yourself talking to someone who's trying to justify incredibly selfish actions on an individualistic scale, saying, well, it's survival of the fittest, tell them that they don't really understand evolution, because it's survival of the fittest plural. And if instead of people acting so individualistically, people actually cooperated, then we would stand a much better chance of developing as a species. And what better example of that is there than the climate problem we have going on? In fact, speaking of climate, if you have, these are some numbers we were talking about the other day, and who remembers them? Who remembers how many viruses hit every square meter of the Earth every single day? This is one of my favourite facts at the moment. So in 1 meter squared each day, how many viruses hit the ground? That's a rubbish H. Rebecca Carmen is saying 300 million, which is close. Yeah, it's 800 million. 800 million viruses rain down on each square meter of the Earth every single day, from crammed full of different viruses. Anyway, these viruses ultimately result in 20% of all the bacteria in the ocean dying every single day. So 20% of ocean bacteria die every day. Now, if we're talking about evolution, and we're looking at locusts and what we can learn from those plagues of locusts swarming around, and we're talking about bacteria in the ocean dying every single day but replicating very, very quickly, who's more likely to survive a world where the environment is changing really quickly? The environment's changing really quickly in such a way that it's becoming harder for everything right now to live in it because we need to adapt in order to survive in it. Who stands the best chance of surviving a rapidly changing climate out of bacteria, locusts, and humans? Who's got the top chance and who's got the lowest chance? Okay, so Kieran's got a great answer saying that organisms that evolve quickly, like fungi and bacteria, are most likely to survive because they can quickly replicate over and over again and select, and the ones that are more strong, the stronger ones within the new environment will more likely to survive. And 1 million sloths is saying locusts, and locusts will be quite high up as well because again they can rapidly develop, they can rapidly be replacing one another with stronger ones. Whereas humans, whilst humans have vaccines, that's not going to necessarily help humans and other large mammals with a rapidly changing climate. So the most vulnerable living things to a rapidly changing climate are generally the larger things that have a narrow window of environment that they can live in. Humans are quite lucky in that we can live in really cold conditions and really warm conditions. But even then, we can't live in anywhere near the variety of conditions that bacteria can live in. And so we don't stand anything like the chance that bacteria do if things were to change very rapidly. So, moral of the story is, make sure you are a locust or a bacteria when climate change starts speeding up. And also, the key thing I really wanted to get across is this idea that evolution is survival of the fittest, plural, not singular, because that is something that schools, I think, often, my school didn't include that, and I wish they had. Anyway, right, I'm going to end on a cool fact, which is totally separate. This is someone who is sweating a lot, and I think this is fake sweat, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, do you guys think, and this is a question that I've heard a lot of people ask, do you guys think that sweat from when you are scared smells different to sweat from when you are just trying to cool down? So sweat because of fear and sweat because of exercise. Do these sweats smell different or are they exactly the same? What do you guys think? Green Mango Man is talking about bacteria that only grow in hot natural saunas. So yeah, a lot of bacteria are called extremophiles, which means they're very good at surviving in lots of different conditions. Some of them are even called polyextremophiles, which means they are used to loads of different extreme conditions. They can be super cold, super hot, high pressure, low pressure, and they're just fine with it. So people are saying yes, probably different water bears. And yeah, exactly. So it is the case that sweat smells different if it's from someone being scared or because someone is trying to cool down. And it goes even further than that, because if you smell two different sweats and you've never met the person, but you just smell the sweat of two different clothes, and one of them is sweaty because someone was scared and the other one was sweaty because someone was exercising, you will actually have an emotional response triggered in you that will make you a lot more stressed when you smell the sweat that is because of fear. Because that kind of chemical communication completely permeates our way of understanding the world in ways that we're actually not really fully on top of. And yeah, I don't know why this pops into my mind, but I'm just thinking of abattoirs where animals go to be killed, and how even if they can't see or hear what's going on ahead of them, they must be able to smell the fear sweat of animals up ahead from them. Anyway, right. That is the end of today. Here's what's coming up next. Hannah is going to do Will Brexit End the EU Part 3 at 3 p.m. She had to delay that from this morning. And then Hannah Bolland is going to do How Bubbles Can Treat Cancer. And tomorrow I'm going to do my What's the Most Futuristic Farm at 10 a.m. So I hope you guys can come to that. And then Phil's going to do From Sonnets to Battle Rap, Short History of Violent Verse. And in fact, we just decided with Phil this morning that we are going to write a book. So Aim High is going to write a book, and all of our students, so you guys, are going to become published authors or published poets, and we're going to get you all involved to help with the writing of the book. So start going to Phil's lessons if you haven't already. Starting, well, next one's at 1 p.m. on tomorrow. And you can start to meet him, because he's gonna put together a book, and everyone's gonna be in it, and it's gonna be sick. Anyway, so yeah, and then he's also doing a guide to being funny, and Hannah's doing why millions of people in China are invisible, and I'm gonna do one on GCSE electricity on Friday, which will be a bit of a wrap up of what I've done. So high school electricity, so it'll be for global audience. You can do it if you're in Canada, New Zealand, wherever. Right, cool. Thanks so much all for coming. Do sign up to our, for the schedule if you haven't already on our website, and do also follow us on socials. That would be great if you could. Plus, you know what would be amazing? If you're watching this on the website and you want to click the button below saying leave feedback, I've got a new feedback form that would be so helpful if people filled out. But again, I know that everyone's got stuff on, so don't worry if you don't have time, but it would be super if you did. Right, so... LDBR's going to be an author. So yeah, thanks so much for coming. I will just quickly say goodbye to everyone, and then I'll head off. Yeah, thanks, Gary Rebecca. That's nice for you to say. And Gunnar Freezer is saying, I want to be in a book. Yeah, I think it's such a good idea. I think Phil's a genius. Cool. Kieran, thanks also for the comment. Yes, please spread the word about fitter being plural instead of singular, because that is one of the things that the world misinterprets, and it creates lots of problems. Right, okay, I shall see you all soon. Farewell. Bye-bye.